Hello and welcome to the 9th and final episode of I Want to Talk About You, interesting conversations with interesting people, with me, Tim Russell. And we're going out the blaze of glory with my favourite episode so far. Well, they've all been great as far as I'm concerned, but I don't think anyone has bared their soul quite as much as the guest in this episode. I came across him on a Facebook group connecting podcasters with guests, and amidst all the various wellness grifters, spiritual gurus, spivs, and other various charlatans who seem to make up 90% of the podcast community, he stood out straight away. And as soon as he told me about his book, Jumping to the End, I knew I had to read it. And I certainly wasn't disappointed. Right from the first page, I was impressed both by his honesty and his highly accomplished stripped-back prose style, which reminded me of Bukowski. And that's about the highest praise I can give any writer. His name is Robert Rickelman, and he spent most of his life drinking and battling mental illness, living in flophouses, going in and out of rehab centres and psychiatric wards. And his memoir pulls absolutely no punches, and our conversation was similarly frank and open. We actually recorded it a few weeks ago, back in early April, but as his book only comes out today, we decided to wait to publish the podcast, so those of you who are interested can buy it right away. And I really recommend that you do, as it's an amazing story, wonderfully told. So, for the last time, sit back, pour yourself a drink, as you'll hear Robert would actively encourage it, and listen to episode 9 of I Want to Talk About You with Robert Rickelman. Good morning, Robert. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Tim. Thanks for having me.
I say good morning. I think it's evening where you are. Where are you? Where are you calling us from?
Tucson, Arizona. So our time right now is 8:15 in the evening.
So, before we dive into your life, just give us a quick introduction to yourself and your new book, which came out this week.
Okay. The book was actually 20 years in the making. I've always suffered from crippling anxiety, and as a young teenager, about 13 or 14, I discovered alcohol, and that gave me, it was just bottled courage, and I was unflappable and just comfortable in my own skin, and made it through high school, made it through 3 years of college, University of Illinois, and I was because my grades were high, I was able to skip my last year, and I enrolled in law school, and that's when I realized that I couldn't do the public speaking and the Socratic method or adversarial method in law school. And so I turned to drinking every day, and I drank every day for 3 semesters, and I knew I was a train wreck. So I drank and just had a bunch of crummy jobs and wound up moving to San Diego to try, geographical change, and that didn't work. Came back to Chicago, was a mess. Moved to Tucson, and in 1996, I attempted suicide. I took a bunch of Demerol and a bunch of Compazine and a bunch of Librium and a a liter of vodka and a bunch of beers. And I wound up in a hospital, and I had to be intubated, and I was on a ventilator for a few days. And they decided to keep me, and I spent a month in a psych ward. First time I was ever in a psych ward, but that's where I should have had it a long time before that. And they diagnosed me as seriously mentally ill, which turned out to be a godsend. I felt like I wasn't, just a low life drunk, but there was a reason for why I was behaving the way I did. But it's still, even from 1996, it took another 20 years of just beating my head against the wall before I get on the regimen of psychotropic medications that finally gave me my life pretty much for the first time. And my wife, and I don't know how, she put up with some real hard times. She really did.
We're gonna discuss that later. Yeah, I've got some questions about that.
Yeah, I said, I told people, I used to tell people I wasn't abusive, but I was never physically or maybe even emotionally, but just being going to the hospital and having to be put on a ventilator, just doing that to her over and over again. I now see that I was abusive, and that went on, and I know the date, January 10th of 2013. Uh, she she caught me drinking at a liquor store, um, and called an ambulance. I went to another psych ward, after getting my stomach pumped, and they released me earlier than I wanted to be released. And I was just, all I wanted to do was just show everybody I was just going to get drunk. And that's all I wanted to do. And nobody was going to stop me. But I think I ended the book for some, I don't know why, but ever since that day, I haven't had a drink. I haven't been to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in the last 13 years. I've never, since I've been sober. I don't really have anything against them, but I've been to at least 1,000 meetings. I've had sponsors and I've done steps. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And so when I just day by day, I just didn't drink anymore. And it wasn't really, I wasn't, saying just 24 hours at a time or anything like that. I had no plan to remain sober. I just didn't drink, and the days became months, became years, and
And
now
now
I've
the
got
and now the book and now the book. So the book is called Jumping to the End.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to tell the story now? I mean, there's bits of it have been sort of trickling out on as short stories, haven't they?
Yes, they have. Mm-hmm. Since 2000.
Why that particular title, Jumping to the End?
My wife actually uh, said whenever I had to do anything, I just wanted to get it over with, and I worried about everything. I had hypervigilance is one of my symptoms. And my wife said, you can't ever enjoy anything like family time or time with friends. She says, all you want to do is jump to the end. You always want to get everything over with. And so when I started writing them, I jumping to the end. Just I thank her for the title. This is absolutely what I do. I still do it. All I want to do is get something over with without looking like a complete idiot.
Let's not take that approach to this podcast. It'll be very short.
Oh.
What I liked about the book, I mean, you contacted me via a Facebook group connecting podcasters with podcast guests, and I had a lot of time wasters contact me, but you contacted me and you seemed really genuine. You weren't a wellness grifter or an astrologer or a spiritual healer or one of the other people who populate these groups. And you contacted me and sent me your book, and as soon as I started reading it, within about 2 pages, I was like, wow, this guy can write. And what I like about it is the writing style is very sort of spare and stripped down. It reminded me a bit of Charles Bukowski. I don't know if you've ever read any Bukowski books. I'm sure you have. Was he an influence on you?
He wasn't, but after you said that, I went back to reading some of the books that I just finished Post Office, and then I have his 1983 nonfiction collection, and he's amazing. I don't know. His writing style changes. One time he'll write a book and he won't even care about punctuation or syntax or anything, and then the next book he writes like a regular author, and he knows the rules of English grammar. I mean, and the thing that gets me about him is he's always talking about doing things hungover, and that's something that is not in my world. I cannot do things hungover. I have to do things drunk. And I admire him. Well, I know he's been gone for a while, since '94, but I admire the fact that he could just push through. I mean, when he drank, but he 12 years at the post office and all these, other things, and he didn't drink through a lot of like he would do 12 years at the post office and then 12-hour days, but he didn't drink through it, and I that still amazes me.
I used to be able to work hungover when I was in my 20s and 30s, but I can't do it now. When you get older, the hangovers just get worse. I can't do anything with a hangover now.
No. And
one other thing I liked about the book was that there was a lack of I'm trying to think about how I put this. There was a lack of sentimentality in the book almost. I don't know if this is fair, but you must have watched Seinfeld before, right? I'm sure you
Yes.
know the
Yeah.
TV show Seinfeld. Now, the writer of Seinfeld, Larry David, he had this maxim for the writers that was no hugging and no learning. So there'd be no sentimentality in the show, and also the characters would learn nothing from their stupidity and their mistakes, so they could go on repeating them. And that's what your book made me think. Oh, I hope you don't find this insulting, but you don't really seem to learn from your mistakes at any point in the book. You keep on making the same mistakes.
Yes, absolutely. Um, Larry David is a genius. I mean, uh, Jerry Seinfeld and all the actors on the show were good, but Larry Larry David just really put together an awesome show. And yeah, they were never sorry for what they did. And last episode, they saw the guy across the street being mugged, and they made big jokes about it and everything. I might not be that bad, but I'm a pretty selfish person, so I understand. I'm not insulted by what you say. And uh, usually alcoholics and addicts are really selfish, but even now that I'm not actively drinking or using, I'm still selfish. It's always about what's going to be most comfortable for me, and I have to remember that I have a wife who gave up a big chunk of her life trying to keep me alive, but I'm s- I'm still not that easy to live with, and she still does it. It's amazing. So
And a lot of memoirs of like addiction and recovery that they tend to follow a similar arc. That the person starts off as an addict and then they recover, and then they start to give life lessons to the reader. You don't give out any lessons at all, or maybe you leave the reader to draw their own lessons, or maybe you have no lessons to give or wisdom to
I-
share. I don't know.
I've had some people Apprentice House. Uh, there's a small press out of Loyola University, and they had 24 readers, and they put us in a cohort if we wanted to be in it. And I had people read it and talk about how I was giving a lesson of hope for people, and that was never my intention. And I don't feel it. I agree with you. I don't. It was all about me. I had a story to tell. I thought it would be interesting. I thought, although I didn't like going to psych wards, a lot of funny crap happens in psych wards. It's just amazing, and a lot of good stories. So we weren't allowed to have pencils or pens because we could, harm ourselves. We weren't allowed to have belts or shoelaces. So I would use crayons and take whatever paper I could find. And if something struck me, I would write about it, but never, yeah, never intended the book as a lesson. I just intended, it started out just journaling, and it got so expansive at one point, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was over 120,000 words, and it was just too big and too unmanageable. And then I almost cut it in half, and it's a lot better book since I've fine tuned it.
It's
And
good. It's like I say, it's very lean and stripped down.
thanks, yeah,
That's what I like about it.
yeah. I just don't have uh, I don't have that literary flourish, and
Oh, it's very well written. I mean, that's what struck me about it. I was expecting it to not be as well written as it is, but it's very literary. Don't be hard on yourself. It's really good. I read a lot, and it's this is it's a seriously good book. That's why I wanted to get you on the podcast.
thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah,
No problem.
a lot of editing, a lot of rewrites. Actually, to tell you the truth, not a whole lot of third party. Like, I didn't hire a proofreader. I just my niece, who's a school teacher, she loves the story. She teaches high school, and her students are either unwed mothers or unwed fathers, or uh, students who are going to become unwed mothers or going to become unwed fathers, and that's her class. And she gives the stories to the students, and they really enjoyed it. I think they enjoyed the dark aspect of it, and most I guess I'm the best compliments from her kids said they hate reading, but they didn't want my stories to end. And it's like, well, I'm doing something right, you know. If somebody who hates to read wants to read my story, then I, I was thrilled, and I'm thrilled that my niece did it. But like as far as beta readers and that, I had one woman. She wrote a gothic novel about the Russian Revolution, and she's an attorney in Austin. She read my book and edited it, and she was very helpful. But that's it. Other than that, it was just me just keep on reading it, keep on finding things wrong. I got my paperback copy in December, and it was just full of mistakes. So I had to do the whole thing over again, and that's okay. I think I think I did a pretty good job of editing. I don't think I would tell my publisher that how how independent I was, because they really pushed getting paying for proofreaders. And there are people in my writing group uh, paying publicists like 15, $20,000 for promotional advice, paying for like Kirkus reviews. It's $450 for a review, and and they don't guarantee anything. They can just trash your book. If sometimes some people, lucky people, get 5 stars, and then that's really great selling point. But I didn't do any reviews. I didn't pay for any book awards. I'm not sure how I'll do as far as sales go, but it's pretty independent project. And I love the human. I love the English language. Um, so I know that I'm a good writer. I don't like to say technically good writer, but um, I do have a certain set of skills. It's kind of, for me, it's limited. It's kind of like almost a minimalism, but it's just how the story comes out better when I don't try to embellish it.
No, it's
Um,
very readable. I mean, I read it. I'd actually gone away to the beach for a couple of days. And I was actually sitting by the pool in my hotel reading it. And for poolside reading, you want something that's very readable and enjoyable. Enjoyable seems like a strange word to use for a book with this kind of content, but I did enjoy reading it, and I just sped through it in about. I got through it very quickly because it's such a readable and enjoyable book, a page turner, as they say. So
a page turner.
that's a compliment to your writing skills, I think. Well, let's go back to to talk about some of the things that happen in the book. Let's get back to your
Oh,
childhood, and you start off. I think one of the first things you say is that I've been fucked up since I was a kid.
yeah.
And you were always very shy and nervous. Were you born that way? Do you think was that a genetic thing, or do you think it was a product of the environment around you?
No, I think I was born that way because I have um, 6 brothers and a sister. My parents wanted a daughter, and she was the 8th one in the family. Fortunately, my father was a successful attorney, so they could afford all the kids. But no, I was just born messed up. My earliest memories are how shy I was, how afraid I was of my grandfather's friends, and embarrassed in front of my aunts and uncles and everything. So yeah, I was. But
And
so
then
it's like,
alcohol comes along, of course, and you find that because that's what I found. I was always shy. Well, I was shy. I turned quite shy when I was about 11 when I went to what you would call high school. Before
oh,
that, I was
okay.
quite confident. And then I went to a high school where I wasn't the brightest kid anymore. I was kind of
Mm.
average, and that made me quite shy. And then, probably around the same age as you, in my teen years, I discovered alcohol, and suddenly it was, it's like this magic potion, which means I can actually talk to people and I can talk to girls and I can socialize and be normal. And it was this amazing discovery. It probably wasn't a good discovery, but
But at the time, it seemed like a gift, and to
oh,
me, it's like, wow. I mean, I can do stuff now. And like talking to girls, yeah. And I went to an all boys high school. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and being afraid of girls, going to an all boys high school isn't very helpful. It just makes you worse. But a couple beers, at the time it didn't take that much. I changed. I also could become pretty obnoxious. Yeah, I wasn't, I was usually a happy drunk, but when I look back, and I was kind of a jerk too. So
Well, your mum was an alcoholic. You say in the book your
ooh,
mum used to sort of drink and disappear to bed for days at a time.
yes.
Drink. I researched this on this Google this statistic. Apparently, children of alcoholics are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol problems than other children. So that probably goes some way to explaining what happened to you. Why do you think your brothers didn't go the same way? Your brothers seem to have had sort of got their shit together, seem to have fairly conventionally successful lives, whereas you went in this completely different direction. Why do you think that was?
You're right. They didn't have the but most of them, they had a lot of self-confidence, and basically I was the least confident of the whole bunch. And like my father was a workaholic, but he drank, but he wasn't an alcoholic, and I guess they must have taken off of his side. And I even though I used to stay home from school to take care of the household when, it fallen completely to hell because of, my mom being in bed for a week or two. I thought I would never drink. I thought alcohol was just the worst thing. Why couldn't she stop? And I would never do it. And it turns out that the one with the most, firsthand experience of how bad and wretched alcoholism can be, I turned out to go that way. Um, and yeah, the rest of them, just God bless them. They just they were able to drink socially. They could drink heavily socially, and no one else has ever been in a rehab or in a detox or gone through the shakes if you try to do it yourself. So I'm glad for them, because it's it was hell. But
Well, you say you spent a lot of your childhood, rather than your mum caring for you, you spend a lot of your childhood actually sort of caring for your mum and running the household. Do you
yeah,
think that's why sort of later in your life you seem to have this complete, almost self-destructive tendencies, lack of self-care, because you didn't get that sort of care when you were a kid, do you think?
that's a great question. Yeah, I would a lot of times ask my mom to please quit drinking and everything. And one time, it's just stamped onto my head for good. She told me, I was about 10 years old. She said, there's really something wrong with your head. You really need to see a psychiatrist. So I see what you're getting at. And actually, she was right, even though she said it to be mean. Or else she was so under the influence of the demons. I almost see alcohol as a living thing, kind of like some people see fire as a living thing. I see alcohol as insidious and patient, and it'll just wait till your weakest moment, and it'll just jump right in there, and here we go again on the roller coaster. But her saying that has always stuck with me, and she turned out to be right. She did. I mean, I didn't see a psychiatrist. I didn't see my first psychiatrist in '83. I had a fairly decent job as a purchasing agent, and I was drinking every night and going to work all nervous. And so I saw a psychiatrist. He wanted to put me on Valium, and I um, had uh, heard so much about the benzodiazepines and barbiturates, and how easy it is to get addicted. And I knew that I had, an addictive personality. So he wound up putting me on a beta blocker for high blood pressure, because I also had essential tremors. My hands shake. And so this drug, it's Inderal, and I still take it. Um, my voice doesn't crack like it would if I weren't taking it. My hands don't shake as much. They shake, but they don't shake as much. And that gave me a sense of calm. And at that time, that was good enough. And I quit drinking after seeing them, I quit drinking for about 6 months until I tried to go back to school, to
Yeah,
college.
that's one of my next questions actually was for me, that is, you may disagree, but I think for me that was the turning point in the whole book. And you yourself in the book call it a boneheaded decision. You're working at this company, Select. You've got quite a good job. You seem to get on well with your colleagues. Your life is probably about as stable as it gets at any point in the book.
Yes.
You've had treatment. You're on medication. You're not drinking. Everything seems to actually be going upwards, and then you suddenly decide to leave and go back to university and you start drinking again. Do you think that is like, do you think things would have been different if you not made that decision and stayed in that job? Or do you think you would have ended up drinking again anyway?
That's a good question. I have really fond memories of my time at that place. Even when I was in the warehouse before I got promoted to the purchasing department, um, I had a lot of friends. I had respect from my coworkers and from people ahead of me and the owners. But I felt like I could be doing more with my life, and so um, I really wanted school to work, and I didn't even anticipate how bad it was going to be. But I enrolled at it was the University of Illinois in Chicago, and my very first day before I even got to class, I got drunk. So yeah, it just completely fell apart. And I've always had a thing about I I never just all these supposed to be such a promising, and I was supposed to have such a promising future. I was going to be an attorney like my father. I never felt pressured to go to law school or to go to the University of Illinois or to get good grades. That just happened. The social aspect of it, I just couldn't handle it, and just going to school again and just overwhelmed me. And yeah, so it was boneheaded, but um, I think it
But it's
was.
probably something probably something you felt you had to do.
Yes, I did,
Yeah.
and I don't regret it. It was just another failure, and it was an alcohol fueled failure. And if I had a tally sheet, I could make another tally for why drinking is so horrible for me. But I didn't learn. Um, I like to be drunk, and even the medications I take now. They give me peace of mind. They keep me fairly calm. I'm still a pretty nervous person, but nothing gives you the confidence that alcohol does. Um, and I've tried everything, and uh, but the price you pay for that confidence and is horrible.
Yeah.
And I was ready to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, well, that's that. You try to commit suicide at least once in the book.
Yeah,
There seems to be a lot of self-loathing in the book. There's a moment towards the end where you take alcohol on top of your psych meds, and you say it wasn't a suicide attempt. It was just a case of let's try it and see what happens, which sounds quite funny and it sounds quite rock and roll, live fast, die young. But at the same time, it's quite scary because I think with your wife at this point as well, and
I
I think it
was. I
seems
was.
quite scary that someone would be so self-destructive.
Yeah. And you. That's exactly the words you use are the words that I used, and I just it was like, yeah, let's just see what happens. If I die, I'm just not gonna wake up and no again, selfishness, no thought for my wife or for her daughter. Um, I married my wife when my daughter was 5 years old. We took her on honeymoon. That was my idea because I thought that I shouldn't just marry her mom and then just take her away from her mom. So that was one of the only unselfish things I ever did for my stepdaughter. I was like, I mean, I was just a horrible, selfish person to my wife and to my daughter. And if dying was going to be the only way I was going to find peace, another case, that's jumping to the end example too. Just, I'd rather be dead. I'll just jump to the end, uh, and it's over. And a lot of it, I guess, also when you're drinking, you just really think stupid.
Yeah,
You just, no, I mean, all common sense is out the window. And like, once again, it's all about me. How am I going to feel better?
yeah,
So yeah, if I die, I die. If I don't, I would just wind up back in the psych ward again
doing the same thing.
and doing the same thing. And I get out, and my wife would probably take me back. There were some times when she um didn't. Twice I didn't put it in the book because it was mostly my choice. I moved into an apartment in 2004 and 2005, and my drinking just nobody was gonna stop me. So I was drinking and going to the hospital, and my pancreatitis and my alcoholic gastritis. I would go to the hospital for pancreatitis. They would put the nasal gastric tube in. I'd have to pump my stomach for days on end. I get out of the hospital, and the first thing I would do is stop at the liquor store. I just didn't give a shit, you know?
Well, that's one of the, again, that was something I was going to ask later. There's this, we talked earlier about this thing of no learning, and there's multiple occasions where you go to rehab detox and you're there for several weeks and you get clean, you get healthy. Well, you get physically healthy, not mentally healthy, which I think
Yeah.
is probably the important thing.
Yes.
So you're clean, and then, often it's your family who've paid quite a lot of money for you to be in rehab. And then you come out, and the first thing you do is you go straight to a bar or you go straight to a liquor store, and you get shit faced again. What's going through your head at that point?
There's nothing I'd rather do than be drunk. I want the feeling. I want just to not give a crap about what anybody thinks of me. What I think of myself. Yeah. And just screw everybody else out. I still want to drink, and I'm not gonna stop. And don't I? The doctors are telling me, there was necrosis of my pancreas. It could be up to half of it is dead, and it doesn't regenerate like your liver. And I also didn't care whether I had liver damage or not, which I did develop a fatty liver.
Because I say you've come out physically healthy, but not mentally healthy. There seems to
Yeah.
be, I may be wrong, but in the book, you don't seem to necessarily have a lot of counseling. There's a lot of medical treatment. Your first time you go for therapy, straight away the doctor wants to prescribe you Valium, wants to put you on medication. And in my own experience of depression, but I find that doctors now and then, I think, are maybe too quick to prescribe medication without necessarily looking for the causes. Do you think that's the case?
I did talk therapy. I didn't put it in the book because I didn't know where to go with it. It didn't seem interesting, but I saw a therapist for 3 years, and I stayed sober most of the time. But she finally was on to me that that I was drinking. Not I would never went to a therapy session drunk, but she figured out that I was drinking. She said, "This is a joke. It's 3 years and you're not getting any better, and all you want to do is drink, and you're wasting my time. You're wasting yours." And so they fired me. And then I had another one. I saw her for about 4 years, and she was always about harm reduction. And harm reduction doesn't work for me. She's saying, well, if you only go on a binge every 3 or 4, 6 months, that's a lot better than drinking every day of your life. And she was good. And she was, no matter how many times I got drunk and wound up in the hospital, came back, she was like, I'm not, I don't think any less of you. So I guess the first therapist, the one who fired me, was probably the effective one, who, if I would have gone along her path, I might have found some answers. And the second one was in my comfort zone, and she was like, not forgive, like I did it against her, but she's like, that's okay, you're not any worse of a person. But I was worse of a person because I had a wife and I had a stepdaughter. And she was always, that's okay, you try again, and you know put more time. And then finally her program lost funding, and so that's the only reason I stopped seeing her. um and then I saw one more therapist who I just didn't get along. That was when I blew up as a doctor about my clonazepam being taken away from me. I felt like she didn't take my side, which was, you know, that was all about me again. I was just a raving maniac, and she was trying to tell me, stop swearing at your psychiatrist and calling them morons and stuff. And I was like, fuck you to her. I don't need a therapist who doesn't have my back. So it's I have two. I think I have two uh, levels of my person. I'm either kind of a milquetoast kind of guy, like I don't want any conflict. I just want to get along and people please or whatever. And then the other one, and it doesn't have to be drinking, raging maniac. I've been in a lot of fights drunk, and a lot of fights sober. I used to win some, but as I got older, I started losing a lot more fights. But I didn't. I only put the in there. I only put the one time
Yeah,
over.
there's the one fight at the gas
Yeah,
station.
yeah, at the gas station, and I don't want to fight the guy. I knew he was gonna cream me, but I just felt like I didn't have a choice. And then the Chicanos and pickup were watching me, and it was like a show for them. They were great. They're good guys and everything, and they said you did good for an old guy. And I hit him once in the neck, and then once and he told me that I should go to the gym, and he laughed. And my wife and I figured out the only reason he didn't beat the living hell out of me was he probably had warrants and he couldn't afford to beat the crap
Yeah,
out of
he didn't want to
somebody.
go
And
to jail for
he didn't want to go to
killing
jail, so
some
that
guy.
doesn't work. So he took off. Otherwise, I think I said that I would be lying in the pool of my own blood, and that's absolutely true. He was going to kick
Well,
my
that's another
ass.
thing about the book. I mean, there's a lot of it's a very serious book in many ways. It's obviously a disturbing and quite a sad book, but there are a lot of funny stories in there. I mean, I particularly like the one where the one time you actually get to be a lawyer is when you're in court representing someone in a divorce case, and the actual lawyer has a car crash on the way there and can't come, so he asks you to go into court and pretend to be a lawyer. And that was a really funny story,
Oh yeah, that was, and for so many reasons that it was like I can't believe I'm doing this.
especially for someone who's terrified of public speaking as well.
Yeah,
You kind of dropped out of law school partly for that reason.
for that reason, and all of a sudden I'm having somebody sworn in, and I'm eliciting testimony. He told me, "Don't say you're a lawyer, just say you're from the law firm." But the judge knew my dad, but I I didn't. And the woman was beautiful. She was very unfriendly. Just do what you got to do. And she didn't say thank you or goodbye or anything. But so, besides being intimidated by a beautiful woman, I was also intimidated by the fact there's a full crowd of. I mean, those divorce courtrooms when all you're doing is trying to get somebody in trouble for not showing up in court, and they're just packed. And but I did, and I was proud of myself for it. And now it does make a good story. But
Probably didn't
I
feel good at the time.
No, it didn't. I said, but that's the kind of lawyer he was, and he wanted to pay. He wanted to pay for my law school. I knew that if I'm his law clerk and he's having me do this, what kind of stuff is he going to have me do if I finish law school and I'm actually, I passed the bar and I'm an accredited lawyer. He got disbarred. First, he got his license suspended for a couple of years, and then he got permanently disbarred. He was I he was a lot worse. I had to change like where he lived and his name and his car and where our office was and stuff. I keep waiting and hoping he's gonna die soon before he, learns that this book came out, because he's the kind of guy that probably would sue me for
Take you
saying
to
it.
court.
Yes,
So you got
he
into law because your dad was a lawyer. I think there's a key scene with your dad in the book when you're about 17, 18. Your dad turns up to pick you up from college, and he's got a new partner with him, Coralie, a new woman, and you didn't know, which you didn't know about at all. He just springs it on you suddenly that he's got a new partner when he's still with your mum. He's still married to your mum, so effectively
still
he's
married him
being
out.
unfaithful
Yeah.
to your mum. And in the book,
Mhm.
you're really, really angry about it. You're so angry that you feel sick. Looking back on that now as a reformed alcoholic and knowing what it's like to be married to an alcoholic, you talk about your wife and how you've treated your wife. Are you a bit more sympathetic now and understanding to your dad for finding a new partner, or do you still feel angry about that?
Yeah, I'm not angry about it, but no, there's one thing I learned from my father is that I never wanted to be unfaithful to my wife. He didn't, more than he wound up cheating with her with his one of his secretaries from his law firm, and they moved to San Diego. He didn't even get a divorce. My dad was just he wasn't a good husband. I think that he didn't encourage my mom's drinking, but my mom's drinking gave him the opportunity to do pretty much whatever he wanted to do. So I think he was kind of okay with it. And he was cold and detached, and she wanted more from him, and he told me that he never loved my mother. And my mother, to the day she died, I believe she still was madly in love with my father. So no, I don't forgive those uh, those situations and the way he treated my mom. Maybe a divorce earlier. But, she didn't have any skills, and also having 8 kids, she didn't have much choice except to stay with them. The longer they were married, the more they grew apart. And I guess when my father died, I think I did say that he did the best he could, and maybe he did do the best he could because his father was a this, hardcore German. He spoke German too, and he used to listen to Hitler on the radio in the 30s in Germany, and he would have his one of his daughters. He would tell her he would translate it to English and have her write it down. He thought Hitler was just the greatest. And my dad's mother died before I was born. From what everybody says, she was a saint. She was just a great person. So my dad had a really abusive father, and he would hit him and everything. So he learned what he learned, and he didn't learn good lessons growing up. So I do now. I forgive him, and when he had his cancer, I spent a lot of time that I didn't really want to spend, but I spent a lot of time with him, and he wrote me a letter thanking me for doing that, and I didn't put the letter in the book, but when my father died, I think I was okay, and he was okay with. There's a passage in the book where I have these roommates. A roommate who's a schizophrenic, and he believes in the rollerball, the whole. Uh, and his father used to visit him a couple times a week, and he would buy him all kinds of food and treats and everything. And there's a passage, and I just real quick, I said how it must have really just been so hard for the father to see that his son, this is the most he was going to be. He was going to be a schizophrenic who had, no foothold on reality. Was a nice person. That was it. Nothing was going to make him better. No medications were going to make him better. And my dad read um, that passage in the book, and he said that to me. He says, "Is this how you think I feel about you? How my father felt about me?" And I said, "Yeah, pretty much." He had to think about that for about and I don't know if he was telling me the truth. He said that he wasn't ashamed of me, but I always felt that he was. I also felt that he had every right to be ashamed of me because he was one hell of a lawyer. He was a trial lawyer, and he professionally he just really um, he was really something else. He was a real force to be reckoned with, and I didn't blame him. If he wasn't ashamed of me, that's great. But if he was, I didn't blame him for it because
Well, that's one of the things that I notice in the book is that your family never write you off. I mean, especially your brother Kevin flies you out to San Diego, pays for you to go to rehab and so on. And you get a lot of support from your other brothers as well. It doesn't matter how bad your behavior is or how frequently you let them down. You're really lucky in that your family just keep sticking with you and supporting you. How important was that? I mean, would you still be around now if it wasn't for that constant support from your family?
no, that's a great question. Kevin especially. Kevin died, by the way, a few years ago of cancer. Um, but he never he was so loving. I have two brothers who were really loving. Kevin and Carrie, they're closest in age of all of them. And he just never gave up on me. He didn't understand the dynamics of alcohol withdrawal, so he didn't like to uh, you know let me try to drink myself, and do my detox on my own by tapering off the drinking. But he gave me everything else, and he never stopped. and I drank all those Jim Beam bottles, and I didn't. At the time, I thought they were, worth probably thousands of dollars. I Yeah, no, and no matter what I did, he didn't give up on me, and my brother Ray, in Tucson. Yeah, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be alive.
Yeah, it's amazing to have that support, because you get support from them. And one other thing I notice in the book is that however bad things get, and when you're at really low points, you always seem to meet people who've got it worse than you. There's Phyllis, I think she's a prostitute you meet in a flop
Yes, she
house.
was.
There's Eric,
Mhm.
the homeless guy. There's Lucy,
Yeah.
the woman who's been badly burned, and all these people are really kind to you. Is it their example that you think stops you really, really hitting rock bottom? Because you never quite end up sort of permanently homeless, or you always seem to have support from somewhere. So is it the example of those people that kind of inspires you in some way?
Great question. I'd have to say yes. There were people, yeah, Phyllis was going to die. I mean, she had the Kaposi sarcoma, all over her body, and the girl with the terrible burns and the morphine addiction. Yeah, they were really kind people, and I always seen even the girl with the dissociative identity disorder who had the multiple personalities. I bonded with her, and um, I felt like, yeah, it could still be worse, and again, maybe that's started sinking in, and the fact that my family didn't give up on me. I think that's an excellent question. Um, and my wife's sticking with me, through hell. Um,
I say you never hit rock bottom. You did drink a lot of Thunderbird though, which I think is pretty it's pretty much rock. I remember Thunderbird from my
oh
teenage
god,
and student years, and it was kind of the it was kind of at the sweet spot in terms of price and alcohol content.
oh
But
yeah,
it's absolutely disgusting. Just thinking about it now makes me feel sick.
yeah. It was like kerosene flavor. And when I gave the nail down, and he goes, he still knew the jingle. He goes, Thunderbird. What's the word Thunderbird? How's it sold? Good and cold.
We used to call
And
it Chunderbird. You know the word chunder? Do you have that word in the
no,
US?
no.
Chunder is like slang for vomit, puke.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, yeah.
we used to call it Chunderbird because that was one of the side effects of drinking it.
Yes.
Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah, absolutely. That is some horrible
Horrible
stuff.
stuff.
Um,
What I mean, you never. We talk about rock bottom. You never seem to get into drugs, though. I mean, throughout the book, I don't think you even smoke a joint at any point, and yet you were moving in circles where you were meeting with drug addicts. You definitely have been exposed to drugs. Why did you always stick with alcohol? Why did you never get into drugs at all? Or maybe you did, and you just don't
uh,
mention it in the book.
yeah, I
I don't know.
did. Back when I was about 16 to maybe my first year of college, I used to do LSD and mescaline and MDMA before there was ecstasy. I did a lot. Like every weekend with my friends, we would do it. And I tried heroin. I didn't shoot it, but I smoked it and I ate it. And we were into the heavy duty barbiturates, but they were harder to get. And I and marijuana, I started getting really paranoid. I smoked for a year. The very last time I smoked the joint was 1986, and just didn't like it. The only thing that really worked and really gave me what was alcohol. Alcohol just it was like, I don't want to say wonder drug. Nothing beat alcohol for me. But I did try it. I tried everything, and nothing else. They were never a problem. I never had a problem where I couldn't stop doing all those other drugs. But of course, the alcohol, it was everything I wanted and needed.
Alcohol was
And
the one.
it was the one, yeah. And I couldn't stop, and I didn't want to stop.
We talked about some of the people that you met on the psych wards, and I think in the book, particularly later on in the book, when you're on various psych wards meeting a lot of different people, you often seem to have more interest and insight in other people than you do in yourself. I mean, some of the telling of other people's stories is amazing. Would you say that's a fair point?
Y Yeah, I don't some, I had a couple of editors where I submitted some short stories, and they thought that I was, taking advantage of these people, and telling stories that I didn't have any business telling. It was their life, and I shouldn't be sharing their stories to make a good story of my own, and,
That's weird. I did that. It didn't strike me as that way at all. I mean, that's what writers do, isn't it? They observe and
thank you, yeah, it did make me think twice, but I don't yeah, I didn't feel like I was taking advantage of them. I think I was just introducing, when I met it's just when I met somebody, um, who story was interesting, and I started writing, I thought, if the story is interesting for me, it'd be interesting to other people too. So I didn't feel like I was taking advantage of
well, they're
people.
part of your story as well, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, they are. And I did learn some things, um, from them, and I learned more about the human condition, and saw how some of them took care of each one another, and they built real strong friendships. But most of them were really in a big mess, and their lives were a big mess, and they probably weren't going to get better. Um, but
One one of the characters in the book talks about AA meetings and says she doesn't like AA because she thinks AA is kind of almost an addiction in itself, going to meetings. And you alluded to it at the start of our conversation that you don't seem to be a big fan of AA. Why is that?
I think that the real strong proponents of AA, they see it's like AA or nothing. AA or the highway, and keep it. So many their uh, like aphorisms, like keep it simple, stupid, um, and also fake it till you make it. And you have to find higher power. And if you want to make your higher power a doorknob or a light bulb, do that for now until you find higher power that's actually like a sentient being. And I thought that was a bunch of crap. I could never do it. I couldn't fake it. I just didn't believe it. And 90 means 90 days, and if you had this much time to spend getting drunk or getting money to get drunk, why can't you invest the same amount of time into staying sober? Well, basically because it wasn't as much fun staying sober as it was being drunk, and there wasn't a whole lot in it for me. And I had never, I just, I loved what that the woman, she said, if you're taking psychotropic medications, you're not sober, and that really pissed me off, and her too, because she said to her, if I wasn't taking drugs, you'd be the first person I'd kill, and that I love that, and she was a pretty rough trade, this woman, but I got along with her 'cause, she just told it the way she felt, but I also happen to agree with just about everything she said. Um,
There's a lot of I don't know about strong, but there's a lot of very strong female characters in the book, and yeah, particularly your wife who ends up kind of being your savior in the end. But it's quite funny because at one point you go to this place called Bootstrap Lodge, which
yeah,
seems like a little bit of a precursor to you've heard all this talk about the manosphere these days of people like Andrew Tate and these sort of very sort of misogynistic influencers, and it seems to be a
yes,
precursor to that. They say the reason you're here, the reason you're an alcoholic is because of women, and the pussy is the center of all that's evil and the cause of all your problems. It seems like a bit of a precursor to what we're seeing now with all this manosphere stuff.
yeah, I didn't think of that, but yeah, they were, wow, they were twisted. They were twisted, and uh, they didn't stay sober. They didn't have, even if for the time they were sober, they didn't have, I didn't think it was a good version of sobriety. If you're going to be not drink, but you're still gonna hate, be a big asshole, and have this misogynist. Oh, their attitude toward women Yeah, the golden, triangle, and, but I didn't look at that as a precursor, but yeah, you're right,
I think guys
and
like that have been around forever. It's just these days they've got more of a. It's easier for them to get an audience. Before they would have just been sort of harmless idiots, but now they've got social media to amplify all the nonsense that
you're right,
they
yeah, they have
talk.
a platform now, and yeah, um, but, yeah, that place, that was just I stayed there out of desperation. It was either I was gonna live in a shelter, and I knew I wanted to stay sober, living in a shelter, or I was gonna live in a with 8 guys in 1 bathroom, and we'd all be getting up to go to you know, our jobs all at the same time. We'd all start before, sunrise. Most of them were laborers and things like that. But I don't look down on, some were carpenters and electricians, but there weren't any professionals there. And I was working a crummy warehouse job at the time. I worked a lot of crummy warehouse. I always had jobs. I never kept them, but I always worked. Matter of fact, I don't talk much about my being on Social Security, but when I being diagnosed as seriously mentally ill, um, makes you disabled. I don't know how easy it would be these days, but in the late '90s, Social Security, you would get a disability check from them. And I had to go to a hearing with the judge, and I had a couple of lawyers. The judge said he had a record. They knew everything. You can't lie to Social Security. He knew every job. Even if I had a job for a week, he had a record of that through Social Security. And he said, "I see you always had jobs. You didn't keep them, but you always had jobs." And he says, "I think that speaks to your not so much that you didn't want to work, but that you just didn't have the wherewithal to keep a job because you could not stay away from the alcohol and working in and drinking, is impossible. This is pretty much impossible, except for,
Yeah.
certain people for somehow can manage it, but I wasn't one of them. But,
You said your dad was like a regular drinker and but was still able to have a really successful career. Did you sort of look at him and think, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it as well?
I did for a while, yeah, I did, because, I worked with him through a summer, and, we would go to lunch, and you know, he would have wine with lunch every day, and so I thought, yeah, if he can do it, I can do it, but I think I sorta knew that I was lying to myself because, I knew that by that time, because I was just about to go into law school, I knew that things were changing. I know, like, for people with schizophrenia, it really starts to take hold of your life when you're in your early to mid 20s. And so when I was in law school, I started law school, I was 22. And I think that's when my mental illness really started to flare up. Although I didn't know, I just thought it was alcoholism. But all I told myself was that I was weak, I was shy, I was a nervous wreck. And the only thing that was going to get me through it was to drink. And it took me another almost 20 years to find out that meant that I was mentally ill. Um,
If you've got that sort of social anxiety, sure. I mean, being a lawyer is surely one of the worst things you can be, isn't it? You know, having to stand up in court and be grilled often pretty brutally. I mean, it's I almost can't think of a more difficult profession to choose if you've got that
Absolutely.
kind of anxiety.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't have picked a worse situation to get into, but it's just that following dad's footsteps, and it was so easy for so many years, and I was on my way, and but then reality hit, and you're right. I found out the the law professors were there beat all that fear and anxiety out of you. And if you couldn't do it, you quit. And a lot of people quit
Yeah,
law school. And I tried to hang tough by drinking. Bell bottoms were in style, and I used to tape alcohol flasks to my ankles and drink in between classes. I actually thought that was for about the first year. I thought that was a viable option. But then by the third semester, I knew even if somehow I made it to law school, I was not going to be able to practice law doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
So in the let's fast forward a little bit from there to the mid-90s, and you had your first spell on a psychiatric ward. What was it like walking into that environment? Was it a kind of a shock? Was it a wake-up call? Because you write about that period very well. You write about it almost like I say. You tell all these stories of people who were there. You write about it like an observer, and you write about it with a lot of humor. It's almost like reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
uh,
What was that? What was that experience like?
Scary. It was scary. Luckily, after I got out of the ICU and they put me in the psych ward, they were giving us a lot of Librium, so I was able to ease into it until I was there for a month, and that after about a week, you're not getting the Libriums anymore, and then they had the first psych ward I was in. They had two wards. They had an east ward and a west ward, and the east ward was the one that everybody told you had the really hostile, belligerent, violent people. And I talked to nurses and psych techs, and they verified that. So I consider myself fortunate that I was in the less dangerous of the two. But there's still a lot of people who are scary. And um, I remember this young kid, very handsome young kid. I felt like, man, if he hadn't been so mentally ill, he had it made because he was just one handsome motherfucker. And I said something to him in passing, and he told me, "Don't fucking ever talk to me, you motherfucker! I'll kick your ass." And that was in the good ward. That was the safe ward. And so there are a lot of scary people. Guy who told me that gave me rules for how I would use the toilet, and how I had to clean every spot of the toilet every time. If I just urinated, and uh, and then a nurse who was really like when you talked about One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, the nurse Ratched.
Yeah, there's definitely a Nurse Ratched character in
Yeah,
there,
there
isn't there?
was, yeah. So that was scary, and I never. There were always things about psych wards that didn't like fighting to be able to use the phone. Um, that was always hard, and just really difficult people, and you don't know what's going to set them off. But most of the time, I think because I kept a little profile, I made it through fairly unscathed, at least physically. Um, and I learned, there are people who are a lot sicker than I was, and it could have been worse.
Yeah,
Um,
and that was just before you met your wife, Pat.
yes.
So how did you how were you able? I'm sorry if this sounds like maybe an impolite question, but how were you able to convince her to marry someone who was in your in your situation, in your condition?
Excellent question. I I was in 1997. Was living in a place for duly diagnosed people. So I had mental illness, and I had the alcoholism, and it was called Safe Harbor, and we were required to volunteer at least 20 hours a week. And so I picked this place to volunteer, and a couple months after that, she got a job there as a case manager, and I was assigned. She needed an assistant. I was assigned to her. And she was beautiful. I mean, it was amazing, and I wasn't
Still
that
is, I'm
bad.
sure.
Yeah, she still is, and yeah, and inside even more so. And I wasn't that bad looking back then, and we hit it off. And I was on a medication called Nardil, which for a couple of years worked. A lot of drugs like Prozac and Zoloft and Paxil, they're called SSRIs. They're
Yeah,
selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They because when you're shooting all these neurons, they when your mind when you, you have the generalized anxiety disorder, the neurons don't go to the next synapse. They turn around and go back to where they came from, and so you're never getting the proper signals, the healthy signals. They're not transferring from one part of the brain to the other the way they're supposed to. Um, so I took those, and they didn't help me at all. And there's another class called Manoac. Um, they're MAOIs, and they work. I'm sort of the same. Um, Sort of the same way. But they've also got a lot of they're dangerous in ways. You can't have alcohol or even like vinegar or um, aftershave lotion. You can't dextromorphin in cough syrup. You can't have that. A lot of painkilling drugs. But for I took it, and for like about 2.5 years, I was the closest to normal that I'd been my whole life, and that's when I met her.
Wow.
And um, and I was able to function really well. And um started dating, and she actually wanted me to get married. It was her idea. She doesn't like when I say that, but but she uh
But she stuck by you despite you said earlier you've put her through a lot of shit over the years.
yeah, I started working as a substitute teacher, and I was doing fine. I was teaching middle school, high school, and then I started noticing I was up in front of the class and speaking, and I started to get nervous. And it not day by day, but week by week or whatever, increment of time, I started falling apart, and the Nardo was not working anymore, and I was as bad as I was before at my first suicide attempt. That my mental illness was just raging. Um, and so the only way I could find relief was I went back to the drinking, because I had stayed sober for almost 3 years. From the time that I started that job, met Pat, got married. But when the Nardo wasn't effective anymore, I went right to the alcohol, and then all kinds of different psychiatrists, just all kinds of different taking medications. This isn't working. Okay, no, we have to try out or titrate you. We have to wait about 2 or 3 weeks to get that out of your system. Then we'll try something else. That's not working. Okay, 2 or 3 more weeks to see if it works. And it doesn't work. Then 2 or 3 more weeks to see to to get that out of your body, and then try something else. It went on for over a year, and it was terrible. It was terrible for her. My hospital visits, psych wards, and overdosing, and uh, choking on my own vomit, and was terrible. So that's when she went through hell for that. And
Yeah,
then
there's a bit towards the end of the book where we'll talk about the end of the book shortly, but she catches you drinking and she smashes the bottle, and
yeah,
your only thought is what a terrible waste of good booze. You say you don't think about your wife, you think about all the vodka that's pouring away.
yeah. How about that? Yeah. I mean,
But it
she
does
drove
make a
from.
big difference. It does make a big difference to your life to meet someone who's totally got your back, who loves you unconditionally like that. I mean, I had a really bad time in 2024 without going into too much detail, but 2024 was kind of a low point. And then at the end of that period, I met my current partner, and it's just, it changes your life to have someone who's just completely supportive, because I'd never really had that. And it makes a huge difference to your life, doesn't it?
It absolutely doesn't. I never had before her either. Every other woman caught on to how bad I was, alcoholically, and just let me go. And rightfully so. I don't blame. I mean, her at the time, but Pat was the only one who's ever not given up on me, and I owe her everything. And now I guess what I owe her is to be the husband that she thought she was marrying. That's why I want to spend uh, the rest of my life being that person. Um, she she she, she one thing that she's not crazy about the book. She won't read the book. Um,
Okay.
she said she lived it, and she did, and that stung for a while, and now I understand it.
Does she think you're oversharing? Does she think you're oversharing a little bit?
Yeah, hmm yeah, and I try to keep her out of it as much as possible. But also, besides oversharing, she doesn't want to have she to just even remember that stuff, and She said, "I lived it. I remember it. I know it all. I don't need to see it again." So she doesn't really care if the book is a success or not. I think maybe she even would rather it's not. I don't tell.
Would rather nobody read it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
if you're listening to this podcast, don't buy the book. Don't read.
Don't buy the book.
Make Rob's wife happy and don't read the book. Well, let's do what you do and jump to the end a little bit. It's maybe a bit of a spoiler, but it's not a whodunit or a detective novel, so I think we can get away with that. The book ends with you on January the 10th, 2013. Your wife catches you drinking outside a liquor store after you've just got out of hospital, smashes the bottle, and then you say, "I do not know why I haven't had a drink since January 10, 2013. Again, there's no learning, there's no wisdom, there's no explanation. You just suddenly stop drinking. It's your last drink, and you don't know why. And have you thought about it? Can you think why that was the moment you finally became sober after all the lapses you've had? Are you any closer to understanding it?
No, the only thing, the physical cravings are long gone. I still get urges. I still like to drive past. I love dive bars. I will go out of my way to drive past a dive bar or a low rent liquor store. One of those liquor stores opens at 6 in the morning. I'll still do. I still do that. I have to admit. So it hasn't completely, gotten its hooks out of me. And I don't think the hooks will. I think maybe there's embedded it. I don't know if they're attached to anything anymore, but there are hooks in there, and there's still something about alcohol that I think I still um, glorify. I'm trying to think of a better word than that, but
Idolize, worship, or something?
yeah, yeah, almost to that point. Yeah.
Does your wife drink? Does your wife drink at all?
Not at all. No.
Not at all.
We had one when we were dating. We went to a restaurant and she tried some strawberry flavored beer and she had like 2 sips out of it and she left like 3/4 of the mug and
I think strawberry flavored beer. I'd be the same. I love beer, but strawberry flavored.
It goes back to Thunderbird.
Yeah.
But she left it and didn't want it, and I was like, "How can?" I even told her, I said, "I could never, leave that. I can't even leave a glass when I go to a restaurant. I can't leave a glass of ice water. I have to finish the glass of ice water." So there's
I'm the
that,
same. I get really annoyed when I see in films, like a detective film or something, someone sitting in a bar with a full beer and they get called out and they just leave the beer there. And it just really, really bugs me when how can you leave a drink?
yeah,
It just,
absolutely. I'm exactly every time. Every time, what? Just finish your drink. You want it and enjoy it.
especially it's so expensive these days as well.
Yeah, the movie The Verdict with Paul Newman, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he
I've
was
seen it, but not for a long time.
yeah, it just came out in the early '80s, and he was an alcoholic, and he was a lawyer, and he was really down on his luck, and then he got this one case fell into his lap, and it was gonna make the difference, and I wanted him to keep drinking. The story ended, he won the case, and he did not return to drinking, and I was disappointed. I wanted him, you know? So I always want people I don't like when people don't drink, you know? It's like I
Still,
can't
even now.
even now. Yeah, even now. And sometimes, someone will say their sobriety date, they've been sober for 2 years, and I think, "Wow, they got those 11 years, they still got to enjoy the drinking that I was sober." So it's not out of my head. So I don't know. I don't think I learned any lessons. I don't the only lesson I think people can take from it is the the longer you stay away from it, the easier it does get. It's as slight as it is, it does get easier and you don't think about it as much. But yeah, I don't have any you know, any plan or any advice I could really give people. And to tell people to just stop drinking is pretty useless advice as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned. Because if you're
it
not
is
ready, you're
totally
not ready.
useless. Yeah.
Either your body's not ready or emotionally you're not ready, mentally. Yeah, it's definitely not a primer on how to
How to
stay
quit?
sober. Yeah, how to quit.
What's
And
what's What's life like for you now? What do you do these days apart from
Um,
writing?
been reading, people in my group, I've been, if you ask for beta readers, I'll edit their stuff if they want it edited. So there are some people in the group who just want you to read it. And actually now, there's no more editing anymore. But I spent the last, I submitted the book um, to Apprentice House on the 4th of July of 2024. And then February of 2025, I got email from them asking if the book is still available. And after being shot down by 211 agents, and
Wow.
I have a record of every agent, and most of them don't reject you; they just don't answer you.
Yeah.
And then about 100 publishers. I finally got somebody. Is the book still available? Well, it's your lucky day because yeah, it's still available. So I got that, and then we found out that out of like 2,500 submissions, they picked 24 books. So that felt
Wow.
pretty good to be in 1%. And
Brilliant.
then they put us together as a group if you wanted to be in the group. And so there are probably about 8 to 10 of us who read each other's work and give input. Except a few don't. They say they've been told what to do their whole life. They don't want any advice from anybody. You can read the book, but don't tell them anything about, any suggestions. You can say it's a great book or whatever, but don't say, why if you change this or this is wrong? Don't even change your grammar. It's funny. But there are other ones who they're like, oh, thanks. That would really be embarrassing. If, in my book, it didn't get caught till the last summer. I talked about a farm I went to live, a ranch I went to live on, and I said it was 60 miles west of San Diego, which would put it in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And that book made it through so many readings, that line, and then I read it and I said, "East or west of San Diego." I says, and so I changed it. So, um, just
I would have
constantly,
missed that. I have no idea about geography around San Diego,
yeah,
so I wouldn't have picked
and
up on that.
everybody else did too, and yeah, especially for you, and then it's understandable.
Hey, so any plans for future books? Are you working on anything else?
I'm considering write possibly writing about being a substitute teacher. It's a pretty crummy job, but there's a lot of funny stories happen with that too. But I don't know if, and that's a maybe because I don't know if that would be. This one just kind of, I think it was sort of meant to be written.
Yeah.
It's one thing that I did with my life that I'm really proud of. And the book about being a substitute teacher might just be because I don't want to be a one and done. But I'm 71, so I'm a 71-year-old debut author. So I don't mind. I kind of enjoy that aspect of it. So I might not, and I don't think I have a novel in me or a fantasy or even a whodunit. This might be the only book I write. Yeah, I actually
Okay.
think it probably is.
Well, it's a great one. It's a great one to have. If it is your only one, then it is a great one to have. I can tell you. Um, last question. Obviously, when you look back on your life, you probably look back on some regrets and a lot of the things that alcoholism has taken away from you. Are there any things that you think your mental illness and alcoholism gave to you? Do you think there are plus sides to it? Because
Eh,
I had this discussion. I think you listened to my previous podcast with Michael Ruffin, where we talk about ADHD, and we were talking about the lives that we might have had without ADHD, and it's like, well, maybe they would have been worse, and it's brought some good things to us. Do you think your experiences have brought you anything good that you might not have had otherwise? I know it's a difficult
yeah,
question to ask when you've had so many tough times, but
actually, um, it's a great question because if I hadn't done all this stuff, I never would have wound up coming to Tucson, and I would never would have met my wife. Um, I never would have. I would being a lawyer is just off the table. That wasn't. I so um everything that happened. I think yeah, it happened. I don't know if the purpose was so that I would meet my wife, but the benefit of meeting her beats. It was. I believe it or not, it was worth everything I went through. That's all over, and in the past, so maybe it's easier to say that because it sucked when I was doing it. But
yeah,
meeting my wife was just hands down. I mean, a miracle. I'm not a very religious person, but. She's a godsend. Um, I could say I d my life is different, but I don't think it would have been better if I don't think it ever would have gotten better.
Yeah.
And so everything happened and it took me here. We've been married for 27 years now. So I'm 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 glad everything happened the way it did. And I'm glad every woman wised up to me in time to send me packing. And I don't
Well, that's
blame them.
another thing I said about not learning. You say early in the book when I think it's Emma dumps you, and you say she's the first of many girlfriends to dump me because of my drinking. But again, you don't learn anything from that, do you? You just
No,
carry on.
no, you don't. Yeah, the
Yeah,
first of many. First, everyone
first
was
of many.
yeah.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
glad it's all turned out right for you in the end, Rob, and I'm glad I'm glad you're happy now. And the book, just remind everyone listening, the book is called Jumping to the End. Where can people find it?
it's on Amazon books, Barnes and Noble .com, and then bookshop.org.
Okay,
And it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's available for you can pre-order it now, but it will go on sale to where you'll get the book once you order it. May 5th, the book will be available, so you can
okay.
order
So
it
so
then.
it's out now effectively because this podcast will come out on
Uh,
6th of May.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So that,
those of you listening, the book's out now, and there'll be links in the podcast description so that you can buy it. And please do, I really, really recommend it. It's out on Kindle and hardback or paperback.
yeah, it's in. It'll be in hardback, paperback, Kindle, and if I decide to try my luck at an audiobook or uh, that might be in the future, but that's not immediate. But yeah, the other three versions, absolutely right away. Yeah, and I hope I was a decent guest. I know I kind of went off in tangents, and it's part of the, I think maybe my anxiety came through, but it doesn't, if I was nervous, that's who I am. I'm this nervous guy who wrote a book. So
No, that's fine. I mean, this isn't a professional BBC or CNN TV interview. It's like a friendly podcast where we chat and we go off on conversations. And if we go off on tangents, so be it. And no, you've been a great guest. You've got an amazing story.
thank you so
And like I
much.
say, the book is just brilliant. I'm not just saying that to blow smoke up your ass because you're sitting in front of me. I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't a good book anyways. You wouldn't be
Thank
on
you
the
so
podcast. So no, it's a really good book. It's an
much.
amazing story, and it's a miracle that you're sitting here talking to me now.
It is, huh?
Um,
I don't know how it happened, but yeah, just like I don't know why I'm sober and why I'm alive, but I am, and figure
and best wishes to Pat as well. She sounds like an amazing lady.
she really is. She really is. Thank you so much for having me, Tim. And
Great, thanks, Rob. Thanks for joining me.
okay,
And good luck with the book. And I hope it sells. Well, I hope Pat won't agree with me, but I hope it sells millions of copies and is very successful.
I do too.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much. Have a great rest
Thank
of
you.
your day. Is probably afternoon
You
almost
too.
there now, huh?
It's nearly lunchtime. Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
halfway through my day. All
Okay,
right.
great.
Take care,
Well,
Rob.
thank you, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the kind words, and this has been a wonderful hour. Um, thanks. Thanks much.
Thank you. Well, what an interview that was. Huge thanks to Robert for taking the time to talk to me and for putting it all out there. Brilliant stuff. As mentioned, his book is out now, and there are links in the podcast description should you want to read it. And honestly, you really, really should. I'm not just saying that because he's a guest of mine. It really is a great, great read. Big thanks to everyone who's listened to I Want to Talk About You over the last few months, particularly that small band of heroes who've actually made the effort to like, share, rate and subscribe. Had there been a few more of you, this might not have been the final episode, but anyway, c'est la vie. And so from I Want to Talk About You, it's over and out. See ya.